with DJ Damashii on MSP Waves Radio. I am DJ Damashii, also known as Rodeo670 on Steemit. And this is the fourth episode of this first ever blockchain related EDM radio show, The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii. Before I begin, I wanted to start you guys off with some pretty good music to get your energy flowing, right? So Here We Go by The Tweakers. Again, that was Here We Go by The Tweakers. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for tuning in, everyone, and for everybody who's been tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. And before I do begin, I just wanted to inform you all that MSP Waves Radio and its owners take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests. Statements and show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of the radio station. The material on The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii is provided for educational and informational purposes only. So, for tonight's episode, I wanted to talk about KANDI because it's something that I've talked about in pretty much every episode so far, and I keep getting these questions from people asking, what's KANDI, like, can you explain it a little further? And I haven't actually managed to do that on the air in one of my shows. So I kind of figured that it was natural for me to then start talking about candy for this episode. And I also made a post about that recently. Anyway, so I wanted to explain about candy because I myself, when I first was exposed to the rave scene back in 2009, I had heard of candy and I wore like, two or three things that my friend gave me. But I had no idea what it was. I didn't really know what it was all about. I was just like, oh, that's cool. People are trading these colorful bead bracelets with each other, you know? So I initially like overheard other people saying that it was like how you knew who at the raves had drugs. So that was like my very first impression of candy and candy kids was that I had been told that people who wear those things are the ones with all the drugs. But I came to find out years and years later that that's obviously not what candy is. So it wasn't until when I got to EDC in 2011, which was my first time going to EDC, that I actually started to get really into candy because people were giving me candy left and right when I told them that it was like my first EDC, and I even though I had nothing really to give, right? So I came back from that EDC thinking like, oh man, this is so cool. I guess this is just what people do at raves. They meet new people and trade these bracelets with each other. And so I started to make candy a lot after EDC in 2011. But even then, I still didn't really know like what it was all about. Honestly, I just thought, oh, this is cool. Like the cool people at raves are doing this, so let me join in on the fun, right? Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I was making even like these complex candy cuffs and stuff, and masks and bandanas, and that's how crazy into it I got. And with that, here is Candy Kids by Barely Alive and Datsik. All right. And again, that was Candy Kids by Barely Alive and Datsik. Before I do go on, I do just want to thank all the audience members for being here and being a part of this show. I appreciate all of you guys so much. Brandy BB is tuning in, who is hopefully, if we can get the audio working, she will be one of my guests tonight. Captain Furry is here, as well as Crimson Clad, Crypto Fixer, Crystal Pacheco 30, Saigon, D-Flow, Drew, Hypexel Spiral, It Is Now, Jesse to You, Cough Potato, Menno is here, Occupy Wallets, Pensive, Rusha, Sir Lunch the host is here, as well as Poetic Snake, Soundwaves, Photons, Soy Rosa, and Odrow. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your night to tune in and join in for this discussion on the electronic dance music culture and lifestyle and what all it entails. You guys are the best. Thank you. So, as I was talking about like how I initially got into candy, even though I was making all those crazy like, you know, candy cuffs and masks and stuff, I still didn't quite fully understand what Plur was about or what candy represented. I literally just thought it was something cool that ravers did, and so to fit in with the rave crowd, I joined, you know, and I started making my own candy. And this was, you know, even after I moved here to Utah, and I went to my very first show after being out of the scene for a while, here in Utah, and it was an Above and Beyond show because they came to Salt Lake City in 2015. I had made some candy too for that, just to wear, you know, and it was a cool experience for me, but I didn't really understand what the scene was about. And this is it's evident in one of my like stories of shame that I tell people. This is like one of the most, in my opinion, shameful moments of my life, because after that show, the Above and Beyond show, I was just hanging out in my car and kind of pulling up directions to get home from the Great Salt Air. And out of nowhere, this dude like comes up to my passenger side window, and he's kind of like tapping on it, trying to get my attention. So I look over at him and I roll my window down and try to figure out what what he needs. And it's pretty funny actually how we met, because his first question is, "Hey man, are you an Uber?" And and I'm just like, "No, dude, I'm just here trying to pull up directions because I'm trying to get home from this show tonight." And he's just like, "Oh, okay, sorry man, sorry for bothering you. I just like, my friends and I, we were supposed to take an Uber home, but it just left without us, and so like we're kind of stranded here, and we don't know what we're gonna do or how we're gonna get home, and so I was just wondering if maybe you could give us a ride home, and we can pay you in gas money." And at the time I was just like, I mean, I guess I have nowhere else to be tonight, and I'm not really in a hurry to get home, so I might as well do these guys a favor, and let them get home. And here's the part where the shame comes in, right? So I drove all this way out to drop them home after that show, and when it finally came time for them to say bye and stuff, they were like, "Well, so how much do we owe you?" And yeah, Soundwave Photon said it sounds like the beginning of a horror movie. I know, right? But so I thought about it for a good minute or so, because I was so like conflicted on what I should ask for them or from them in terms of gas money to cover the trip, and I was just so conflicted. And for whatever reason, I guess I just was hurting for money at the time. And I told him, "Oh, I guess $30 sounds good." And so these guys, complete strangers that I had dropped off at their home after a rave, I had helped them get home. I ended up asking them for $30 in gas money. And it was like such a huge moment of shame for me looking back on it now, because if I had just known, about Plur, and I had known what the scene was about back then, I never would have asked them even for money. Like, I would have just said, don't even worry about it, guys. I'm just glad I was able to help you get home, But stupid younger me, who still didn't know Plur at the time, I charged them for that trip, and it really, I feel bad about it. But he and Merced, his name is Merced, he and I, like, we've stayed in touch actually after that. So like it's been cool that they don't think ill of me for that night, basically. But yeah, so after I started making candy again after that show, I didn't really know what it was about. I was just doing it again because I thought it was cool, and it was kind of like my attempt at getting back into the scene. You know, and but that didn't work out for me because eventually I stopped making them again. Because I still didn't quite understand what it was about. I couldn't really get that excited over it. You know, as excited as I was about it, I couldn't get this true sense of excitement from it. But with that, here is Something New by Tritonal.
Something new, and I just can't walk away. I just can't walk away. There's something close to me, just the way that it has to be, the way that it has to be. It's like a brand new start, but I feel like it's falling apart. I feel like it's falling apart. There's no one to blame. I'm writing out this song in the rain. I didn't wanna give it a name. I didn't wanna give it a name. Something new, and I just can't walk away. I just can't walk away. There's something close to me, just the way that it has to be, the way that it has to be. It's like a brand new start, but I feel like it's falling apart. I feel like it's falling apart. There's no one to blame. I'm writing out this song in the rain. I didn't wanna give it a name. I didn't wanna give it a name. just can't walk away. There's something close to me, just the way that it has to
All right. And once again, that was Something New by Tritonal. And man, I wanted to play that because when I came back into the scene after going to Las Vegas for EDC last year, I it really did feel like I had discovered something new when I went to EDC. You are once again listening to the Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii on MSP Waves Radio, by the way. So when I went to EDC last year, that oh man, it changed my life. You know, not to sound like stereotypical raver status over here, but it really did. My whole understanding of EDM culture and plur just like exploded when I was out there. I just saw so much firsthand what plur is. You know, not no one singular person taught me what plur is. Basically, my understanding of plur that I have been speaking of, you know, since I started this show, the central tenets of EDM culture: peace, love, unity, and respect. Though that's an understanding that I picked up for myself while I was at EDC last year in Las Vegas. It wasn't, you know, people didn't tell me, oh, this is what it means, this is what that means. I just it's so evident everywhere you look at EDC that you can't help but learn for yourself what plur is when you're out there, you know. And so I found that something new that year at EDC, and that was when I decided to start making KANDI again. And KANDI, I have been getting more questions in the audience chat about what KANDI is. So let me back up for a second here and briefly go over exactly what it is. So far, I'm sure everyone's gathered that they're these, you know, bracelets, beaded bracelet things that people wear at raves. As far as like what it symbolizes, it's like the physical representation or manifestation of the ideals of plur, peace, love, unity, and respect, which are, you know, the central tenets of EDM culture. And it's the people trade them back and forth basically, as like it's kind of a souvenir of the rave that you were at and the cool people that you met, you know, basically. So going back to how I went to EDC and I just discovered this amazing new aspect of EDM culture, or I shouldn't call it an aspect, I should call it the truth about EDM culture, because that is, in my personal opinion, that is the, you know, what it really is all about, is looking around and seeing the love for humanity displayed everywhere you look, and people are just so loving and accepting of each other and supportive of each other. It's such an amazing feeling, and I wish everybody could get the chance to see that in action for themselves. And I'm never going to stop talking about rave life, and I'm never going to stop, you know, talking it up and trying to get as many of my friends to go, because of how much it's changed my own life and the lives of the friends who I've brought into the scene as well. You know, I've just seen such a huge change in everyone, including myself, and I believe in the powerful healing properties of the rave scene, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So with that, my love for the scene was restored, you know, because I saw plur for myself, and it blew my mind, completely blew my mind, to see it in action and to finally gain that understanding of what I had been missing the first time I went into the scene. And with that, here is an old classic by Tiesto. It's Love Comes Again. All right. And once again, that was Love Comes Again by Tiesto and BT. Man, I thought that was pretty fitting to insert at that point because at that point in my life, my love for the scene and for making candy came again. I had a newfound understanding of why it's significant. I wasn't just doing it because I thought it was cool anymore, basically, and I just man, EDC last year was such a huge life changing experience for me. I can't even stress that enough. I came to so many realizations about like life in general and about the rave scene specifically as well while I was there at EDC, and all of that like really helped me to dive fully, like wholeheartedly, right back into the scene, because of my kind of larger understanding of it. And so one of the biggest lessons actually I've learned in terms of candy, while I've been in the scene again, is that you typically don't just trade them away to everyone, or to just anyone. Rather, it's the exchange of candy between two people at a rave. It's an exchange between between two people who really connect and have established this significant bond with one another, despite only having been connected for such a short period of time. And so, with that newfound understanding of all of it, I started making candy again, like semi prolifically. I'm not making as much as I used to, in those days when I was making them because I thought it was cool. But the few that I do make now, they hold such a deeper like value or meaning to me now because I actually put forth a lot more time and energy and thought into making them for these people that I end up giving them to. And with that, here is Eyes by Cascade. All right, and once again, that was Eyes by Cascade. And I thought I would play that because I'm about to go into like how KANDI is basically eyes, like, so just like eyes are the windows to the soul, like that song said, right? KANDI is basically a window into one's being, because KANDI, these little bracelets and cuffs and gadgets and trinkets that we make with pony beads and whatnot, KANDI is, it's a window into one's being because it's an expression of someone's inner creativity and individuality. There's like people who don't understand the scene, they kind of like ridicule those of us who wear these beads, right? And they're like, oh well, like why are you wearing that? That's like a childish thing to do or whatever. And it's it's actually quite a significant part of the culture that most people don't understand. So KANDI initially got involved with the rave scene, according to rave urban legend, right? That the very first associations that KANDI had with raves is that the people wearing them, much to much like how I first thought of KANDI back in 2009 when I had no idea what it was about. So it goes in rave urban legend that KANDI was associated with raves because the very first people who wore KANDI were the people with the drugs at raves. It was kind of like a homing beacon to them, and you could just go up to anyone. That's how the story goes, But there are two schools of thought on this actually, and the other one of the other popular notions is that KANDI was introduced to the rave scene by literal hippies who who joined the scene in the very early days, and they had these friendship bracelets that they were handing out to people, and so their friendship bracelet, handing out or trading or whatever, kind of serves as like a precursor to what we know as KANDI today, supposedly. I'm not entirely certain, I'm not entirely sure about the veracity of those two accounts, but take it and do with it what you will. So basically, when it comes to KANDI, each piece, it's generally different from every other one in creation, which is pretty crazy to me. I'm sure there are people who make these things and they kind of make them in bulk or with the same design, but for the most part, most people who are involved in the KANDI scene will only ever make one of one particular type of KANDI. Like, they won't make all their KANDI exactly the same. Which is really cool, because that's where I was saying, like, people's inner creativity and individuality comes out when we make these KANDI pieces for either for ourselves or to trade away for other people, because it takes so much time and effort to make these things. People think that oh, it's just a single band with beads on it, like how hard could it be, or how much thought and effort do you have to put into it, and a common example that I have of this and of it taking a long time, longer than most people, is that, like, whenever me and my best friend sit down to make KANDI for these shows, we're always spending up to maybe like 5 minutes or so just sitting there in deep thought, trying to figure out like what we're gonna make, what message or words or themes we're gonna apply to these things that we're making. And it really takes a lot of good creativity, honestly. Most people wouldn't think that, because like I said, most people come at it thinking like, oh, it's just a bunch of beads strung together. Like, what effort and creativity possibly could go into that, but yeah, so a lot of people will even sit there for a good half hour or so just trying to figure out what route they want to take with making KANDI. And so all of this time and effort that people put into making these KANDI pieces, it equates into a lot of one's personal energy going into each KANDI piece, whether it's a single or a cuff or a mask or whatever the case may be. It's a very creative process that involves pouring, the outpouring of one's being and of one's soul into this thing that they're creating in the real world, basically. And so because of that, because of the massive amounts of energy that is poured into each piece as it's being made, at its very core, this rave ritual of trading candy with other people at the rave essentially amounts to an exchange of energy between two people. Because like you pour, like I said, you just pour your heart, soul, and energy into this thing that you've created, right? So it essentially, you're leaving a part of yourself attached to that thing that you then give to somebody else. So you're basically, when you trade your candy away to someone, that represents you giving a piece of yourself away. And it, to me, and this is just my personal opinion, observation, take, whatever you want to call it, this is part of this whole rave effect of your vibe attracts your tribe. And the people that you meet at these raves, that you come to know as your tribe, as your rave fams, they you essentially eventually come to this realization that, like, everything is kind of coming together because the pieces of the one whole, like, consciousness of humanity that broke off and split off into each and every single one of us inhabiting these physical bodies, they are coming together and meeting, and we are recognizing one in the other, and like, oh, we recognize that we're all one human family, and we're part of the same family that should join forces and work together in peace, love, unity, and respect, right? So part of the whole candy thing is you giving a piece of yourself to the other person to remind them of that special connection that you made at the rave, and remind them that you now have a part of me, because this represents that, like, you and I are one. And so it's a constant reminder of that, and that's one of the things that I've always thought was really, really cool about candy and trading candy with people. And going off of that as well, with the exchange of that energy, it also comes, the making of memories with those people that you meet and connect with, and so you basically, when you trade candy with someone, you're imprinting yourself into their life, and you're letting them imprint themselves into your life, because every single time you wear that candy, or every time you see it, in your memory box or whatever, wherever you keep your candy after shows, you'll remember who gave it to you. Hopefully, right? Unless you're like too drunk or messed up at the rave and you just don't remember anything. But that's another story for another day. So you'll hopefully remember who gave it to you, and under what circumstances you met. And with that, I'm going to play The Grave featuring Gabrielle Hook, and this is by Black Tiger Sex Machine. Hopefully it plays. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, you are listening to The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii on MSP Waves Radio. And that was The Grave by Black Tiger Sex Machine. Thank you guys for tuning in. Oh man. Before I do go into my next segment, I do just have to remind listeners that MSP Waves Radio and its owners take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the talk show host or their guests. Statements and show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of the radio station. The material on The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii is provided for educational and informational purposes only. So, now that I've kind of gone over my personal KANDI Kid story, just briefly, I didn't really give an extended history, but yeah, now that I've covered that, I do want to go a little bit further in depth about the more esoteric nature of KANDI trading and what it entails from a more like spiritual, philosophical, or even magical place. So, when it comes to trading KANDI, once again, this like everybody's different, so this isn't going to apply to every single KANDI Kid that you meet, but typically the idea is there's a difference between your left hand and your right hand, or your left arm, right arm, in terms of giving and receiving KANDI, right? And so this school of thought is rooted in magical practice, and that's magic with a K, by the way. And so in magical practice, occult lore, etc., the left hand is considered the receiving hand, and the right hand is considered the sending hand. And so likewise with KANDI, when it comes to KANDI, a lot of KANDI kids you meet will follow this same approach, although it isn't adopted by every single KANDI kid. I do want to stress that. I wish it were, because it's a really cool system in my opinion. So it's common practice for KANDI kids to also keep pieces that they receive on their left arm while putting the pieces to trade away on their right arm. And so, at its most basic level, this practice is simply just to be able to better keep track of the pieces, so that you don't end up accidentally trading away pieces that you were given, for whatever reason. You might be like some poor lighting and you're just like reaching around for a piece to give away or whatever the case may be. I've heard stories where people accidentally gave out one of the pieces, and that they were given, and they were like freaking out over it, like, oh my god, I can't believe I gave that piece away, and so for KANDI kids who do adopt this practice of left arm and right arm, depending on which one the case is, it's a lot easier to keep track of that KANDI, but on a more deeper, on a deeper level than that, though, this whole notion of keeping the KANDI on the left that you receive and putting the KANDI to give out on the right, it's the energetic exchange in full force, because you're receiving someone's energy along with all the time and effort that they put into crafting that piece of KANDI that they just gave you with your left arm, right? And you're giving a piece of yourself that you put your time and effort into from your right arm, and therein lies like this energetic exchange back and forth, left and right, between two people at a rave. And with that, I'm going to play this song, and it's called Anahera by Goriella, one of my favorite tracks of all time. All right. So once again, that was Anahera by Goriella. Man, that's just such a beautiful, beautiful song. It's one of my favorite EDM tracks of all time. I still, oh man, the very first time I heard this song was actually from that Goriella documentary from the heavens, and I was just like doing my own thing, and minding my own business and watching this documentary about Goriella and Ferry Corsten, and this song comes on, and out of nowhere, next thing I know, my eyes are welling up with tears, and I'm just like being so moved by this piece of like, I like to describe it as pure sheer melodic ecstasy, because it just uplifted me so much that I was literally moved to tears by the beauty of that sound. And a lot of Goriella's tracks sound like that, and it's just so amazing, and I'm happy I was able to share that with you guys and that you guys appreciated it. So with that, going back into Candy, it's not just the energy that you're exchanging. Actually, the candy you receive, it always carries that person's energy, but also it carries with it the memory of that exchange and the impression that that person left with you. Because you wouldn't have traded. Ideally, I should say, ideally, you wouldn't have traded with that person unless you thought they were cool or they made some sort of impression on you, right? Because that's the idea behind trading candy with people, is that you exchange it with the cool people that you meet at raves and the people that you'll hopefully continue to develop a friendship with as time goes on after the rave. So for me personally, I can honestly say that I do remember, for the most part, pretty much all the candy that I've ever gotten, since EDC last year, and I know all the stories behind all the pieces, and I still remember the very specific people that I got them from, because like I typically only trade with people that I make a real connection with at a rave, and so, and I'm talking about people that like we actually click and we talk for a while out on the dance floor or wherever we end up meeting, and we get to the point where like, oh dude, you're pretty cool, let's trade contact info and hang out sometime, kind of thing. And so for the most part, every single candy piece I've ever gotten, I remember the story behind it, and I remember who it came from, like really really specifically. For instance, my favorite candy of all time, which I'll always hold this piece near and dear to my heart, is my rave name candy, the Chaos candy. And I always wear it to every single rave, every festival I go to. And every single time I wear it, every time I see it, every time I put it on, I'm always reminded of my friend Tony, who I met at EDC last year. I remember how we met during Seven Lions, and how he was the first person that like I talk a lot about like EDM culture and plur and sharing what you have, but it wasn't until I met Tony and he actually had run out of water at some point while we were, raving the night away, and he came up to me and asked me for my water. And it's funny because like despite the plur, the first instinct in my head was to say no. Like I don't know why, but I felt like some weird aversion to some random person coming up to me and asking me for my water. But then I reminded myself, I was like, no dude, plur man, like everybody's been freely sharing with you, why wouldn't you share yours with this new friend that you just made? So Tony, the reason I also remember that candy and that story all the time is because Tony was the very first person that I myself committed an act of plur towards by sharing my water with him. So yeah, fun story. I'm not even sure that Tony knows that, if he's listening right now. But yeah, that's why all these candy pieces will always be very very meaningful to me. And with that, I have to drink some water, so I'm going to leave you with this song real quick, and it's called Happy Conversations, and it's by Schuster, who I talk about like every show basically, because I love his music.
love you.
All right. Again, that was Happy Conversations by Schuster, spelled SHSTR. So, at this point, you are listening to The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii on MSP Waves Radio. And at this time, I'd like to remind you all once again that MSP Waves Radio and its owners take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the talk show host or their guests. Statements and show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of the radio station. The material on The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii is provided for educational and informational purposes only. So, sometimes, going back into the whole KANDI thing and the KANDI exchange, sometimes KANDI is even traded in a less personal manner, meaning not, person to person. But in this one particular case, it's only ever happened once in my life, person to person to person. So, to give you guys an example, one of my other favorite pieces that I've ever received, I received last year at Global Dance Festival, actually, and it's my Half a Day KANDI single. And it was given to me by my friend Ronnie, who actually I just found out is tuning in. So thank you, Ronnie, for listening to my radio show. I really appreciate it. So he gave it to me at Global Dance Festival. But when he gave it to me, he explained that it wasn't actually from him. It was from his friend who is from Guam, and she got excited when he told her that he has a friend from Saipan now, which is me. And so, like, I had no idea who she was at the time, right? But I was so stoked to get this KANDI, like, from a complete stranger that said Half a Day, because it every time I wear it, it reminds me of home, and it reminds me of where I'm from, and it reminds me of the crazy, crazy meetings with people from my islands, who I've met since I started raving again. And so even though she and I had never met and I had no idea who she was, in that simple act of having Ronnie give me a KANDI that she made, she connected, herself and I together before our paths were to actually end up crossing in real life. And I mean, I still haven't met her in person yet. I was supposed to meet her at Decadence in Arizona, but I ended up not being able to go. But we have since become connected through Facebook, and it's kind of already like we're family. Like, it's just that whole icebreaker thing of KANDI. It really, it just really warms people's hearts and gets them to, like, take walls down and feel comfortable with you, in my opinion. The power of raves, right? And so she's actually listening right now too, so thank you, Bryn, for listening in and for being here. With that, I am getting ready to bring my first guest of the night onto the show. And I wrote about her in my post. It's none other than Brandy BB. But before that, I will play another song for you guys. This is Selector by Rez. I guess it's not playing right now. That's weird. I thought it was playing. But yeah, so I'm still working on getting Selector by Rez on, and Brandy BB right now is working on getting her audio. So I'm really looking forward to talking about KANDI and the role that it plays here with these other guests that are coming on tonight. And it's going to be a really good time, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. I see that Angel has joined the crowd, as well as Claiborne and Saigon. Ginger Samurai is in here, as well as Global Cop, and it is now... Oh man, you guys are all awesome. Soul Turtle is in here as well. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. Here is Selector by Rez. All right. And again, that was Selector by Rez.
I've been working day.
Sorry, I couldn't get the music to stop on time for some reason. But yeah, that was Selector by Rez. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was something a little different compared to what I usually play on my show. But Rez is also one of my favorite artists that I just discovered last year, actually at EDC, thanks to my friends from Arizona, Brad and Tori, for showing me Rez. I never would have discovered her amazing sounds if I hadn't gone to EDC and if I hadn't met those guys at EDC. So I'm really stoked to 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 talk about these guests that are coming on. I'm still having problems getting getting her audio to work, Brandy BB. Yeah, so we're just gonna have to talk about some candy that I got. I recently wrote an article or a post on my Steemit actually about these 5 pieces of candy that I received last year at EDM festivals, as I went to these crazy events. And the first one I already talked about on the show. I talked about my Chaos candy. The second one I also talked about, which was the Huffaday one. The third one, it was this candy single that had a Perler Game Boy design thing attached to it. And it was really cool actually, because I got it from my friend Kat, who I met her at this candy making party, one of that party that Cynical Optimist organized, that I mentioned when I was interviewing him. And it worked out that I somehow randomly bumped into Kat while I was at DOS Energy here in Utah, which was also my very first Utah festival. And it was an amazing experience, and I'm really glad that I went. But basically, we bumped into each other, and she was like, "Oh, let's trade candy. I'll get you some candy." And she gave me this cool perler thing, and it was my very first perler thing ever that I had ever gotten. So that's why I was so excited, because it was really cool, and I love Game Boys, or I used to, I should say, when I was a kid, right? I'm a huge gamer as well. But yeah, and I always wear that everywhere I go, because it reminds me of how cool, like, the power of raving is. Because perlers, as much time and effort go into making these candy singles and cuffs and stuff, perlers are a whole different story, and they take even more time and energy and effort into creating. So I really appreciated that she was so willing to just freely give that piece that she had made. The next piece that I'll talk about is this single that I got at Escape when I was in Southern California back in October for this Halloween rave thing that was going on. And it's this candy that has this like heart locket charm thing attached to it. And the text, it does have letters on the actual single, and it says "I love you." It was pretty cool to get that piece, because I was in line standing in the Ferris wheel, and standing in line for the Ferris wheel, I should say, and
letters on the actual single, and it says
aha.
"I love you."
And here is Brandy BB, I think. Brandy, you're gonna have to stop listening to the radio actually while we talk. Otherwise it'll like feedback loop all the way. Can you hear me, Brandy? Hello? Brandy BB. It says that she's connected, but I can't hear anything that she's saying. I heard for a little while because I could hear, I guess it sounded like my radio show. So yeah, so I don't know what's going on right now. Brandy, I can't hear you, unfortunately, and I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, feel.
I am so sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, actually, I can hear you now.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so sorry about that. Wow.
No worries. So everyone in the audience, can you guys hear Brandy BB right now? Hopefully you can.
I got it figured out finally. Sorry, this is my first time actually. Hello, everybody. I'm new. Yeah, I'm new to this whole speaking. Usually I'm just typing, so pardon me.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, it's. I'm glad we were able to get the audio thing figured out though, because man, I was really worried that actually I wouldn't have any guests, because I couldn't get my audio to work for any of my other guests either. So we have like 3 people right now whose audio I haven't figured out. But I'm just glad that it seems to be working now on your end. So let's get started by why don't you introduce yourself actually to the audience, and like talk about like how long you've been raving, or how you discovered the scene and how you feel about it, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, sure. So raving for me, it's been I don't know, it's been in my life since I was about 18 years old. I'm 24 now, so my first like actual festival or any type of like candy exchanging experience or even candy making. Yeah, I made candy for this festival. I don't know if you've heard of it, but my first festival was Paradiso.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that was my very first anything. But yeah, from that moment on, that was like a whole weekend type of festival. So we camped and then we stayed the night and then just like party throughout the weekend. And you kind of become like a family with those people that you camp with. So it was just like a crazy first time for me. Um, but yeah, I'm sure you know that feeling too.
Oh yeah. I mean that's how I feel about my friends that I ended up, meeting up with at EDC for, and that was the first time we had ever, met in real life, but
Yeah,
we all just clicked together, and they have become basically family to me.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it is. It's like even the people you park next to, you're camping next to them for the whole weekend and then like so you're like neighbors and you kind of become like family. It's just and then you like walk together to the festival and then sometimes you'll see each other like in the crowd and it's like what a coincidence. There's like thousands of people here, and like what's the coincidence that I'm going to see that those two people that I just met.
Right? Oh,
And
trust me, I
sometimes
know.
yeah, yeah, and that's kind of like the cool things that can happen at these type of things, and then you end up exchanging candy and whatnot.
Right? So in terms of like what in terms of your experiences with candy, what would you say is like one of the most profound candy stories you have of either a piece that you gave away or a piece that someone gave to you?
Um, a piece that someone gave to me, probably, uh, it'd probably have to be my friend JC. Like, I went to high school with her, but we never really like became friends. And then I saw her at Paradiso, and we were like, so there's, how there's like main stage, and then there's like base stage, and then there's like kind of like a techno stage maybe.
Yeah.
Like, so we were at the main stage, and that's where like the most people are, and you're just like in the front, row, in the middle of the crowd, and that's the craziest spot to be, really. And like when you see somebody and you're just like surrounded by the people that you love, it's kind of like a crazy moment. And for me, when I saw her right there, we exchanged like she gave me this necklace that she made, so that was something that was really special to me. But what about you?
I mean that's I mean one of my stories that I'll always tell is my chaos candy story, which I already kind of went over earlier. It's just it's really significant and profound to me because I mean that's my rave name now, and I never when I was
Oh, right.
yeah, when I was going to raves in like 2009 or like 2013 or so, I always heard about rave name this, rave name that, but like I don't know, I was never cool enough to get one back then or something, or I was just too out of the loop, I didn't really understand what the whole scene was about, and I never got one. And suddenly when I went to EDC, and I consider my trip to EDC kind of like my rebirth, and rightfully so, I got, quote unquote baptized under a new name, Chaos, at that
Yeah,
rave.
yeah. It's crazy how that happens, right?
Yeah.
Like kind of yeah, like a rebirth kind of thing, like because you feel so like supported by these people that you never thought you'd be supported by, and you kind of feel like loved by people you never thought you could be loved by. So I totally get it. It's
Exactly.
kind of like Yeah, it's kind of like a lifestyle, not really a. I don't know.
So let's talk a little bit about your Steemit experience as well, guys. Everybody that's tuning in right now, this is Brandy BB. She has been on Steemit for a while, and I'm about to post her link to her profile in the chat right now. So yeah, Brandy BB, why don't you tell us about your Steemit experience so far, and what you write about, what your account is all about?
Thanks. Yeah. So basically, I started off as posting for Steamit's Got Talent. I painted my first painting that I've ever really showed to the world on this contest. So I actually got third in that season. So that was kind of something that was special to me. And then I've always really supported that as well. And then ever since then, I've kind of just been really busy, and I kind of fell off for a little bit there, and it's been kind of hard for me to get back on Steemit. So right now I've been busy just working on some other stuff. Like today, I didn't even know like when this was happening, and also I was like kind of preoccupied. And sorry about that and the audio and everything.
Oh,
But
no worries.
I'm gonna be coming out with some new stuff now, so just be looking out for that.
Awesome. So basically, you're like revamping your profile, is what I'm getting.
Exactly, so just new stuff, like kind of trying new things and showing you guys what I can really do, kind of.
Nice. So
Yeah.
so do you go to raves and festivals often then?
It's been a little while, like a couple years now. I've just been really working on me and like kind of focusing on myself and bettering myself and um, really figuring out like what I want to do. So I haven't really been going to festivals or been able to actually. So yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of what you want to do, so this show, as you know, is called The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii. I think it's only fitting that I ask you, what are your dreams in life?
My dreams are to, just like be happy and be able to travel and meet other people that are into the same things and kind of, meet the good people in life, and kind of get out of just that small-minded kind of like small circle type of feel and kind of just like reach out there and meet some new people.
Nice. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's what raving is all about though, right? Like I mean, I know that I myself I plan on traveling across the country and hopefully across the world for DEF CON 1. I'm still hoping that that's going to actually happen. But like traveling everywhere and meeting new people and making new friends and establishing these crazy like ridiculous lifelong connections with people that you never would have thought you would have ever met, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
uh
that's what I'm talking about as well. I totally agree with
Yeah.
you.
I like how you first answered that too, is to be happy. Like I feel like a lot of people when you ask them what their dream is, they don't take into consideration like their personal happiness. A lot of people will kind of like give a response that's really surface level almost, and they'll tell you something like, "Oh, you know, I want to do this or that."
I want to be an astronaut or something,
Yeah, yeah, stuff like that. Which I mean, which is not to say, you know, talk down on people that legitimately do want to become astronauts, because that's an amazing dream in my opinion. Like, that's like the ultimate destiny of mankind, you know, to branch out into the stars, and that's awesome that there are people in this world who actually want to do that.
right? Yeah, but it's not the idea. It's not like realistic, what's your long term like kind of goal, or what's your balance in life? What satisfies you? I don't
Exactly.
know.
Like what makes your gears turn, or like you know, what makes your inner fire come alive. That kind of a dream is what I love
Right.
to like hear people talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um.
um,
All right. Is there like anything else you'd like to talk about or mention on the air while you're still here?
um, no, but just wanted to, well, yes, I just wanted to thank you for having me and for everybody that's tuning in and listening to me ramble. I just, this is pretty cool, and I'm really like excited about what you're doing, Kelvin, because, or Saipan, I just, this is what I wanted to do or what wanted to speak about like when I first started getting into Steemit. So that's really cool that you're doing this, and I really support you and everything that you do.
Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's I'm really glad that you said that actually, and I hope that you know you'll maybe hopefully because of your participation here tonight you'll consider starting to write a little bit more about the EDM life and the EDM culture because I am trying to grow a big EDM community on Steam. I would love to see the day where the EDM tag is in you know the list of top tags used here on Steam and people are talking about EDM and people are producing EDM on posting it on the blockchain and stuff. That's one of my dreams for Steam basically in the EDM scene.
Oh yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And I thought that from the beginning. I wasn't quite as brave as you to really get too deep into it because there's always that backlash about the like scene that you do get from people,
Yeah.
um, you know, just the negative vibes and whatnot. But really, it's not about that. And like you're saying, it's about the plur and the good vibes. So I would, I just wanted to spread that as well. And that's cool that we can now start this community and spread the vibes, the good vibes.
Exactly. Exactly. I hope to see some like EDM related posts from you in the near future then. That'd be really
For
cool.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Be looking out, no doubt.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me for a little while. I really appreciate it, and hopefully people check your profile out and give you a you know a good look over and hopefully they like your content.
Thank you. For sure, everybody. Check my profile out, Brandy BB. Uh, thank you guys for listening again, and thank you. You guys have a great night.
All right. We'll see you later. Thank you for coming on.
All right. See you guys.
All right, everyone. Again, that was Brandy BB. She is on Steemit, just like everybody else in the MSP Waves audience right now. Thank you all for tuning in. And before I move on to my next guest, I will play another song. This is Bonfire by Knife Party. Hopefully, it'll play, and hopefully, it won't give All right. Once again, that was Bonfire by Knife Party. And you are tuned in right now to The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii on MSP Waves Radio. Right now, tonight, my show is all about KANDI. And so I decided to bring on more than one guest tonight, just to kind of keep it open and forum-y, sounding. But so right now, my guest, her name is Bryn, and she's actually not on Steemit. But she is the one who gave me that half-a-day candy that I was talking about earlier tonight on my show. So, hello, Bryn. Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you.
Sweet. All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to come on my show tonight and talk to us about your experiences as a KANDI kid.
Oh yeah, thank you for reaching out. I was really surprised that you wanted me on here since we never actually really even got to properly talk or introduce ourselves until today. So, hi.
Yes, hello. This is the first time you and I have actually spoken and have heard each other's voice. So it's pretty cool.
I know, right?
So let's start it off, I guess, by having you introduce yourself to all the listeners and kind of talk about like how long you've been raving and how you found raving and stuff like that.
All right. Well, my full name is actually Sabrina. Bryn is my family name, and I'm located in Phoenix, Arizona. And like you mentioned before, we met through my now boyfriend Ron through our three-way candy exchange. And I'm still pretty new to the scene. I've only been raving for about like a year and a half. My first event was Nocturnal 2016. And I've pretty much been stuck on the scene ever since then.
Nice. What got you into KANDI then? Was it just like always a thing for you from when you first started, or did somebody show you that along the way?
So the KANDI thing started from my first rave, who I went with my friend Carla, and she gave me this pretty decent sized cuff. I can't really say, probably like 3 inches wide, that unfortunately I no longer have anymore. And ever since she gave me that, I was just so amazed with like people actually make these and take the time to make all these intricate pieces with just these simple little pieces of candy that I remember as a child making what we now call singles. And ever since she gave me that piece, like I've always been fascinated on trying to bring out the creativity part of the rave scene and showing off your jewelry art, which I like to refer it to. And I do make candy a lot in my spare time. We try anyways to have multiple sessions with my friends on the weekend to just pretty much just make candy, so it's became a pretty good hobby of mine.
That's pretty cool, actually. You're like the first person I've known who actually like regularly or semi-regularly gets together with their friends to make candy. That's pretty sick. I usually just kind of make it on my own in my own room. Otherwise, like I'll have my best friend over and we'll start making some together. But for the most part, I make my stuff on my own. I might have to try like making it with friends. I feel like that would be a lot more fun too.
Yeah, you should, because it's more of a bonding thing on top of you making something to create a bond with a stranger, but then you're also doing it with your friends as well. And it's really good to also get feedback on like colors and designs, just to have like a second person, kind of give you more input.
Right, right. Yeah, and it's cool that you said you wanted to like bring the creativity thing into it, because like I said, that's something that I can appreciate about KANDI, is that it really brings out everyone's inner like creativity. Like a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm not a very creative person," but sit them down at a candy making station and put beads and string into their hands, and all of a sudden they're just like, "Oh my god, I made this!" Like cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like in Arizona, we have a AZ Rave fan page, and I've tried reaching out to that open page to have people come and make candy with me or even teach them. Like at Decadence, this past one, which by the way was unfortunate you couldn't come. I did actually make a friend out of one of the girls there that was fascinated by my candy, and she was like, "Oh, like teach me, like I really want to learn, teach me." And so I'm hoping that further down the line, like I can make a new friend out of something again as simple as candy, like we have with either trading and now also teaching and learning.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really important thing too, and I'm really glad that you're so willing to teach people, because a lot of people, I feel like they go to these raves and they see a lot of these cuffs, and this isn't to, to speak ill of people in our scene, but sometimes I mean, it's understandable that somebody who made such a sick cuff would, like, if some random person were to come up and be like, "Oh, that's so cool," like, and like flat out ask for it, without even like building a real connection with the person at first, like, then they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, this is only for trade," and that's like the typical answer that people give, right? But like,
Yeah, I agree because I've had people ask me for candy and I get nothing in return, which I know part of the whole candy thing is to be generous and share, but at the same time, sharing also means you should get at least something back because it still is like giving and receiving, like Christmas. Everyone loves to get gifts, but what's also the best part about Christmas is giving the gifts as well. It kind of
right.
needs to go in like a full circle.
Exactly. And going off of that too, like, because I've been in I've been on the, that candyless person side of things too in the past, and in those cases, when I didn't have any candy to give back, what I gave back to the person was my time and attention and, like, genuine interest in who they are as a person, and trying to find out, like, who are you, like, why are you here, kind of thing. And I think that's super important, because a lot of the newcomers who are, completely brand new to the scene, and they don't have any candy, but they see that it's being traded around and they want to be a part of it, because they think it's cool or whatever. It's important to teach them that, it's okay that you don't have any candy to trade. I'll give you one, because that's the whole spirit of Plur, right? But, like, at least get to know me and let me get to know you, and let's become friends. So that way you can actually, like, take a memory home with this piece of candy that I'm giving you, and you're not just like, "Oh, look, this is a cool bracelet that some stranger gave me at a party I went to."
Yeah, I totally agree with that because I hope with every piece I give, no matter how simple or intricate or just bedazzling, just anything, like they can at least remember, don't necessarily have to remember me as 100%, but at least remember that you met me and you had a great time at this event on this day. And hopefully, every time you look at that piece, you can remember, like what you were talking about earlier, like the exact moment that you got it and how you got it and who gave it to you. Because every little piece, I personally tried to make it represent something I would like or I would want to wear. So they can always remember, hey, I remember that one girl that was wearing this, and that, because I'm sure a lot of people forget names as we all do,
Yeah.
that at least they can relate it to me further down the line.
Exactly. Isn't it crazy though, to think about, like, this little, like, singular string of colorful beads, like, it incites, it brings these memories back, and there's, like, a whole story to it, and it's just, like, to any outside observer it would just be a random string of, of colorful beads that people wear, but to each of us who receives these things, there are just memories upon memories upon memories of people, good people that we connected with, and that's something that I've always, since I, discovered the true spirit of Plur, etc., since going to EDC last year, like, that's something that I've always thought is so fascinating about candy.
Yeah, because every piece I have that I keep, I have like my iconic pieces. Like these are ones that I am going to keep because of it's either who made them for me or just who I was with at the moment or even like a particular event. Like it may sound kind of funny, but I cherish my candy as jewelry. Like I have cried and been heartbroken over pieces that got stolen from me because the three pieces that were taken from me were the ones that meant to me the most. And I just never thought like a box of or a tray of candy is like averagely $20. I've never thought that $20 tray would mean so much more to me than some of the jewelry I have in my dresser.
Right? That's so amazing to me that these pieces of plastic pony beads carry such significance to us. And I'm sure the outside observers who have no idea about anything about our scene would just look and laugh and be like, oh, look at all those like childish adults who are getting excited over these colorful beads.
Yeah, because these beads are or were as kids. Like I really do remember getting like kits as these as a child and just making like just little crappy things that look cool. And now as adults, we're like over here spending like hundreds of dollars on all these beads that we'll just keep using over and over again. Like I've seen cuffs that have like actual like earth crystals on them, and I'm just like, wow, like I can't imagine how much of your hard-working money you put into this just so you can give it to somebody else.
Right? But that goes back to what I was saying, earlier about how the exchange of candy isn't just like, oh, your bracelet is cool, let's trade bracelets. It's when that person gives you something that they made, they are literally giving you a piece of their soul, I feel like, because I mean, we pour out so much of ourselves into making these things. Like you wouldn't, the average observer wouldn't think that we do, but a lot of time, energy, and effort goes into making these things. It's crazy.
Yeah, they really do. Just like how an artist can ask for his or her canvas, like hundreds and thousands of dollars, because it's the same concept. It's something that can never be fully recreated by another person because this is their self-expression.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I always love going to raves and seeing how creative people get with their candy pieces. It blows my mind. You see these people who have like these insanely intricate like 3D humongous like cuff things that are just like exploding on their arm, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm always on the lookout too. Like even when I'm with Ron, like always like tap him, and I'm like, oh, did you see that? Did you see what they're wearing? Did you see that cuff? And even like when like people compliment me, like people who aren't wearing candy is a compliment, but people who have like these ginormous cuffs and these huge perlers and give me a compliment of anything I made, that just like it makes my whole night.
Right, exactly. So we kind of are running out of time on the show, but like with my previous guest, Brandy BB, this show is called The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii, and so what I like to do for all my guests that come on the air, since part of what I'm trying to do with this radio show is show average everyday listeners who aren't part of our scene that like I want to show them the human face of all of this basically, and prove that we're not all just a bunch of irresponsible kids who pop pills and try to forget about the world for a few hours, right? So I'd like to ask you, what are your dreams in life? Like where do you see yourself being in like maybe 5-10 years if money weren't an issue and you could do whatever it is your heart desired?
Well, I would hate to copy Vivi's answer, but of course, like my first and foremost thing is to just simply be happy with what I have. Like I one day would like to be fully content on what I have in my life without having to keep striving for the need of feeling I need more. This is still not enough. So that's one simple goal of mine. And another thing I would like to have in my little dream world is I would like to visit, our island chain again and somehow be able to afford to live out there for like a month to fully immerse myself in the culture that I unfortunately cannot experience here in the States. So that is something I would really love to do one day to get more of a feeling that I kind of know who I am and where I'm coming from. So I'm hoping one day I can get to at least go back out there and stay a little bit longer than 2 weeks, because 2 weeks was definitely not enough for me.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I myself actually haven't been home in over 10 years now, and I've really been wanting to go back home. So hopefully maybe sometime this year, I don't know, because all of our rave activities that we're planning, right? Like I mean, I really have my heart set on going to the forest this year, honestly, and I really really want to make it out to Electric Forest finally.
Well, hopefully we can go. That will be a short-term goal for us, and since we are from the same chain, from my island, it's only, what, a 2-hour boat ride. I mean, we can take a group trip out there and.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, again, thank you so much for being on my show tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your night to come on and listen and be a part of this. So thank you. Are there any like closing remarks you'd like to give before we say bye?
I can't really think of anything at the moment. I probably will after we're done, but I do hope to meet you in person one day. If it's not at E-Forest, we still have, bigger events here in Phoenix, or we can also try to go visit you one day. So hopefully this will not just be an internet friendship, because I know Ron, says a lot of good things about you, and I'm sure he would like to visit with you another time as well. So I guess we can just say this as we'll see you later.
All right. I will see you guys later. I definitely know it. This year we're going to meet up again. So, yeah, thank you again, everybody. That was my friend Sabrina, who gave me my Holiday candy, which I always wear to every single rave I go to. So, once again, you guys are listening to The Dancing Dreamers with DJ Damashii on MSP Waves Radio. And I just wanted to say thank you again to Global Cop and Rondon and the station managers at MSP Waves Radio for allowing me to have this show and for supporting my efforts every step along the way. I leave you now with this track, again, that I play at all my shows. This is Ordinary Life by The Prophet.